afternoon, everyone, and happy Friday. It's Alyssa Corman, Ed Carson here with a look at the stock market today. We are going to break down the action for the major indexes this week. Quite a bit to talk about, especially with a big burst of buying into the close here today, Ed. And we're also going to take a look at three stocks that might help us navigate these interesting market waters that we're in right now.
Yeah, the market looks a lot different than it did about 10 minutes ago, but yeah, it's definitely difficult to navigate. We're going to take a look at Ubiquiti, big winner today, Entegris, another one of these chip gear makers, and Tesla seems to be stuck in the garage right now.
It does. Well, let's kick things off with our Thinkorswim chart from TD Ameritrade showing the candlesticks on the NASDAQ daily chart here. So the NASDAQ gaining 1.2% on Friday's session. We also had the S&P 500 up 1.7% by the end of the day, the Dow up 1.4%, and the IWM, which tracks the Russell, we'll take a look at that, up about 1.8% today. So again, a big burst of buying into the close, but the NASDAQ still lagging here, even with a strong day today.
Yeah, it was still down for the week. I mean, the NASDAQ technically, even though it was really nice to see Thursday and Friday's gains, it probably got the least out of it because it's still below the bottom of this regression channel. It's still well below the 21-day line and the 50-day line. So while, look, it's really nice to see that you came off the lows, but it still, doesn't really change the picture of, the NASDAQ and the tech sector just generally being in having trouble.
So, even if we do get back in within that lower regression channel area, it feels like there's going to need to be some more progress than that before we get more positive on this area of the market.
Definitely. The 50-day line, I think even over here, before you can start really feeling confident that, yeah, the NASDAQ's really moving higher. We still have a split market, and that's for sure.
And this morning on IBD Live, we were talking with David Ryan, how it seems like the NASDAQ might even be shaping a head and shoulders pattern. But we'll also take a look at the weekly chart here to provide an additional technical perspective on what we're seeing with the NASDAQ. Ed, what are your thoughts on the weekly picture?
Well, you can sort of see these long lines. It was a pretty wild week, but that's sort of common. You're going to see a lot of wild action just in general if you look at stocks. It's just stuck below the second straight down week. The move wasn't ultimately, the weekly close wasn't this huge move, but a lot of wild action. And, the NASDAQ has gotten weaker this week after and breaking through some important levels.
So it's this continuation of this bifurcated market, which actually was in question maybe midweek. It was looking like everything was kind of getting dragged down. But now at the end of the week, things are looking a bit better for some of the other major indexes, Ed. So, when looking at the Dow, which had a strong gain today, followed by a nice upside reversal at around the 21-day line yesterday. It's getting awfully close to those prior highs not all too long ago.
Yeah, I just had to check to see if it hit a closing high. This is the diamonds, so we can see the real time, because didn't want to see anything delayed on this. Don't want to miss out on the last few minutes of trade. Yeah, really nice action yesterday. It got below the 21-day line. That was weak, especially since this was the best looking index, to see that breaking through there, but came much better. All of a sudden, a week that was sort of sideways and choppy looks a lot better. The problem is that a lot of the real economy stocks had much wilder weeks, and so it would have been easy to be shaken out. You're buying breakouts up here, and then you get shaken out down here. So it's just difficult to navigate, even beyond what the indexes seem to show.
That's right. Well, let's also check in with the S&P 500. We could pull up SPY, keep the ETF theme going here. So the S&P, while the Dow came down and had an upside reversal at the 21-day, the S&P came down to its 50-day and saw an upside reversal there. So that was pretty bullish, and followed up on that with another strong gain today, and it too getting close to those prior highs.
Yeah, this might have been the most important action because on Wednesday it got below the 21-day line and we put the rally under pressure.
Right.
To like the market direction, just because at that point, and we'll look at the Russell as well. That could even worse. The Nasdaq was breaking below her. Breakouts were struggling to. So this action going through the 50-day line was really grim, and to have this rebound and then come back here all of a sudden right near highs, that was very positive. It's probably the most technically positive of all these indexes because it was looking weak and now all of a sudden is knocking on the door of record highs.
So a very key development by the end of the week here. And you mentioned the Russell, so let's check in on IWM, tracking the small cap index. Visually, this just shows you what a round trip the Russell had. It was looking pretty dire there midweek. Found a bottom, upside reversal too, got a theme here. And IWM, it looks like it managed to close right around that 50-day, Ed.
Oh yeah, now it looks like it's closing at, it's just like just a smidge above the 50-day line because it came crashing through the 21-day line, 50-day line, nearly undercut the March lows, really was not looking good at all. So the combination of just plunging like that in the S&P is why we went into market under pressure. It's come back, so it's right at the 50-day line. Have to see if it really can get back above, seriously above it and get it back above the 21-day line. But this is somewhat more of a reflection of a lot of stocks. You saw these kind of moves, and you saw these kind of moves. There's a lot of stocks where they were doing things, and you saw this up and this down and this up. And it's one thing to have a sideways market. This was more of a sine wave where it's going up and down. And if you're buying at the tops, you're going to quickly come down on that. And it's just very difficult to navigate.
Exactly. We've seen a number of good setups, potential breakouts, but we've been saying all week and I believe the week prior that it seems like if you are going to buy those breakouts, A, go in small, but B, it might be a better environment to be buying on pullbacks so you don't get shaken out on those breakouts.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, let's speaking of breakouts, we have to look at Ubiquiti, ticker UI, an explosive move today, up 14%, breaking out of this cup with handle base. It's been on our radar all week, just really strengthened throughout the day. We got that RS line blue dot just surging into new highs here, a stock that has a lot to like about it.
Yeah, I mean, this was a good-looking chart, which is especially impressive given how volatile this market. The handle turned out perfectly because it shook out a little bit, coming down below the 21-day line, but finding support. It wasn't that deep. So the relative strength line hitting a new high, the earnings growth is accelerating, sales growth is accelerating. Strong group. It just ticks off all sorts of boxes. This was added to leaderboard. I personally had this briefly. I had to take it off, but was like, this was one that you could have bought. There was actually a time, if you look intraday, there was actually a decent amount of time when this was in buy range. So now you can't touch it, but there was a good hour or so, it gapped up and then just steadily moved higher. It never would have shaken anybody out. Anybody buying in this area, it was a safe situation. And this volume, wow, that is really impressive volume. Seems low, but with that dollar price, it trades enough to be it's fairly liquid in that regard.
Exactly. And, you mentioned the window in which it was actionable. I think that makes such a good point about why we like to prepare and have watch lists and screen stocks and have them on our radar. So we're not caught off guard. So we're not seeing this halfway through the day when it's already up double-digit percentage and we can buy it at the right time. We're being very selective with breakouts, but this looks like a good one to have capitalized on.
Yeah, that is the absolute great reason for a watch list. You're absolutely right.
All right. And next, Ed, we want to check in on Entegris, ticker ENTG. Jumped Friday, flashing a couple of buy signals here. So I see you have a declining tops trend line drawn on the chart. But this, like a number of other stocks that we've looked at, there's a couple of ways to splice and dice the buy points.
Sure. That's always that sort of fun here. You could also just buy it off of this sort of sideways, this little area. This could be seen as a handle. This is also going to be another entry point. It's almost a double bottom. I mean, I'm not, it's not enough. It's sort of a squat, but you could sort of see that as another early entry. Obviously, a lot of the chip gear makers, and of course, there's the all-time high here. So there's a lot of legitimate entries. This might look a little extended if we go straight up through
Right.
here, but there's this one has, strong earnings. It didn't really slump last year because the growth isn't going to rebound because it never really slumped. And there's nothing wrong with that. And we've talked a lot about the chip gear makers that
Right.
have broken, powerfully. This is one of them. This doesn't necessarily be the one, but this is why you want to have some on your watch list and then look through the group. Hey, is there anything better? Or is the group really got real strength, or is it just one stock? The Intel news saying that it's going to build two plants in Arizona really captured that group, and this is definitely one of them that ultimately saw some real strong gains.
Right. And while Entegris looks like it's still within range here, not too extended, Applied Materials, another name in the group that we've been talking about, had a strong gain of its own today, up about 7.5%. And it's looking a bit extended at this point. One could argue.
Yeah, I mean, technically it might be in range if you saw this as the handle, or because it was this situation, but it's getting pretty far from its 50-day line, and in the 10-week line would also be pretty extended, 15%. So there's a decent chance it would come back, but in this market, there's a decent chance any stock is going to come back. So that's something to be watching out for.
That's exactly right. And let's check in on Tesla. We've been tracking this stock's run all last year and the action this year too. Of course, we pinpointed the appropriate times that this stock was actionable technically, and pointed out the climactic action that we saw towards the beginning of the year. And clearly the technicals have broken down. The stock isn't on sale here. We want to see the stock heading in the right direction to put those odds in our favor when we're buying.
Yeah, and honestly, I mean, Tesla looks like a lot of other stocks. If you look at other EV stocks or other story stocks, they're all showing similar action or worse. I mean, Tesla actually got above its 21-day briefly, which it didn't last, but a lot of the other names out there didn't even try to do that. It's, when you keep on hitting resistance, now it's losing sight of it. And again, there's nothing really specially wrong with Tesla. It's just that whole area that, that you can't count on last year's winners to be this year's winners. Just like you can't expect, well, last year this was in fashion, this will be in fashion. No, I mean, things can change. And, sometimes fashions last and sometimes they don't. And maybe this will come back in style, but you don't know. And it can be a long ride. And so, you sell on technicals, and you can't rely on a story alone. A story cannot make a stock go up by itself. It helps when a stock is an uptrend, but not when it's down. And so it has its day. Maybe it'll have another day, but this has definitely been a drag and really showed no real fight this week.
Yeah, when we're pinpointing the times to buy that are shown in history, our technical analysis to increase your odds of success, that is when you want to be putting that money to work, not something that, like you said, has a great story, but could be dead money. So we'll keep an eye on Tesla. But now let's talk about the game plan for the week. Ed, take your pick. Any market chart you want to throw up, or just your final thoughts to camera here as we digest this week's trading action. It seems like there were a lot of positives, but there was also a lot of very difficult action when it comes down to getting shaken out of stocks that were breaking out but pulled back. It's not an easy market right now.
Yeah, and here's like a story that ended up well, or so far, but it would have been really hard to stick with. I mean, just as XME, talking about that up and down, we talked about this on IBD Live, it breaks out and it goes down really hard, almost gets to through the sell area, comes up, comes down, comes up, comes all the way down. I think it fell just about 15% from here to here. This is the mining and metals ETF, and then it rebounds right back over 2 days. I mean, that's just really difficult to hold. And there's others that did not bounce back like that, but are just as volatile. So, it's just, if you're going to take positions, you have to make them small, because you might get shaken out, or you may see some big losses. It's just really tough to deal with when a stock does this, or an ETF does this.
Well, Ed, could now be the moment, this action that we saw, yesterday, so many of those upside reversals at key levels. powering higher today, that late burst of buying, things are looking better. Could this be the moment where we get those market conditions that make it easier to make headway on trades?
It might be. It might be. It'd be really great to see the Dow and S&P hitting new highs. I really think you need to get the NASDAQ participating in a real way, getting above those levels, because there's just the risk that that'll just drag it down again. You just don't know. I mean, even though we are in a, the market rally is still there, it's under pressure. You just don't know. We've had some days like this before in a couple of days. And so we could easily turn around. It doesn't mean you have to be out, but don't try to assume, don't try to predict. It looks good. It's going to work. It's like a lot of things look good, but boy, got 30 minutes of down action, and we could be, a lot of these good looking stocks all of a sudden would suddenly look in trouble. So definitely keep your emotions in check. You got to step back and look and say, wow, this action is just tricky. It's just tricky. And Ali, you always talk about, I think talk about, an exit plan, because I think that is just so important in this kind of market.
Yeah, that's right. Until we do see that strength from the NASDAQ, it sounds like now is the time, especially more than ever, to if you're going to take those nibbles and size those positions accordingly, you always want to make sure you know where to get out, because look at a week like this week. We got tested. Some stocks did rebound, but some didn't. And I think at the end of the day, as long as you are following the rules and not getting lucky, then you're going to be better off in the long run. Because if you just are getting away with breaking the rules right now, that could really come back to bite you in other times.
That's right. And I would definitely say build up a watch list of stocks and try to get a diverse group, because I think definitely right now we don't know where the leadership is. Okay, home furnishings looks good. Some of these chip gear makers look good, but it's hard to know, and that could turn around very quickly. So I think that you get a diverse area. It's always a good idea, but you don't know where the leaders are going to be. I don't know where the leaders are going to be. And so when, you want to have that. So if nothing else, you want to have your just an idea of what's happening. So when those things start moving, you'll be able to move into it and just and jump on board with those when we really start moving, consistently higher and taking advantage of that.
That's right. Well, I can tell you one thing, Ed, when it comes to finding the next crop of leaders, the IBD team, we're all over that. That is what we're about. Whether it comes to our daily stories, our weekly features, different screens that we're running on IBD Live, leaderboard, swing trader, you name it, we're all over it, talking about all of these things, not only on this show, but IBD Live as well. So we definitely hope you continue to tune in. And if you haven't checked it out already, make sure you go to investors.com/IBD Live. Thanks, Ed, for breaking down another week of trade. And thank you all for watching. We'll see you back here next week.